I feel that in my body right now. Like it's
right now is where
so
you
much.
need to step up.
Yeah.
Exactly as you just had. You've got a heap out there. You've done amazing.
Yeah.
But this is where we need to go, you know what? This block is not going to hold me back. I am going to take responsibility over this.
I really would like to hide behind it right now. Is that okay?
No.
I did a little bit.
No.
Oh.
You're getting called
Very
out.
uncomfortable.
You're good.
Yeah.
You're being called out.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you find that you are stuck or something is holding you back, you need to get into it, look at it, and maybe change your interaction with it. So I would say, own it.
Right. This is quite funny. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome back. This is the first time we've done a podcast. We've had a pause in the middle. Yeah, so part two.
Wow. Intermission, which actually was really nice when you used to go to the movies and have an intermission. I don't know. Is anyone else the same vintage as us and remembers that?
Maybe not.
It was great.
Now you just have to miss 5 minutes from there.
I know. It's the worst. Anyway.
So whether it's been a couple of minutes or you've been fumbling around like us to find the next episode of the podcast, or whether it's been half an hour or a week, we want to get straight back into it. We said this is a big topic and it's radical self-responsibility. And
I realised that we never actually just introduced ourselves in the episode 4. So now we're in episode 5. I'm Jodi from QuantiMama.
And I'm McGill from QuantiPapa.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So we were in the process of talking about radical self-responsibility, and we'd really, I think, started talking about how that manifested itself or appeared within the parenting realm, which I feel like we get a really luxurious opportunity to sort of think through these things and play around with them, because we choose to homeschool the kids, and you're not without them at all. That's a double negative, but you have them with you all the time, don't you?
They are very constant.
Yeah, they are constant. Yes, that's a nice way to say it. So kids, tick, boring, move on.
Well, yeah. So we discussed a lot about radical self-responsibility in relation to how we interact with our children and a little bit about how we interact with ourselves. We mentioned at the start of number 4 that the last 3 years has probably pushed a lot of us and challenged a lot of us to look at our lives, how our lives are going, and make an assessment of them, and deal with, in some cases, multiple changes. For us, it was both completely changing our careers, our lifestyles, everything.
And based on foundational decisions.
Yes. And when I look back at that, because I won't speak for you, darling. I've tried that before and it never seems to work.
It doesn't work for you.
When I look back at that, I look at it and I go, there was a period of time where I felt that I was a victim.
Yeah.
It wasn't my fault. And look, it wasn't, but I chose.
That's right. It was not your fault. Your choice to leave your career was your choice, but not your fault, not your doing.
Yes, but I was happy to wrap that blanket around myself of victimhood, because then that choice that I made, that stepping up and taking responsibility, didn't seem quite as full on, because it was something that was taken away from me.
Yeah, and there's a fallen hero identity with that, isn't there?
There is. There definitely is. And it took quite some time for me to find a bit of balance back within life. And even now, sometimes I want to slip back into that victimhood mentality. But
because the whole thing sucks balls. It's the worst, isn't it? I mean, it really, to be forced into prematurely leaving a career that you really love and were very good at, based on something that seems markedly unrelated, it really sucks balls. And I think it's fine to say that within the radical self-responsibility realm.
And so sometimes that wanting to slide back into that, I'm the victim here, still comes up, and I still get challenged. But over time, and with obviously discussions, I've also stepped into that thing of going, you know what? I'm going to own that decision.
Yeah.
I'm going to take some responsibility in what I've decided here. And over time, that's changed my whole outlook and perception on it all.
Yeah.
There's still going to be some frustration or some bitterness even in relation to, how everything sort of played out. But at the same time, the difference is I can look at it now and go, well, I took responsibility and it changed my life and the way we've run our whole dynamic, one another as a couple, as a family. And you know what? It's pretty sweet.
Well, we kept reframing the language, didn't we? So you allow for when those moments of, loss and grief come in, because there is loss and grief, and it's not about denying those feelings, but it's using the opportunity in those moments to say, well, what's my next step? What's my opportunity for, how I move forward within this experience? How can I high vibe this experience? And, I don't think you have to find joy. It's not about faking it until you're making it in that sense. It's, I think, terribly important. In fact, it's one of the hallmarks of radical self-responsibility is to allow those emotions to move through you. Because to internalize them is to either marry yourself with another identity, which is pretty low vibrational. There's not a lot of growth within that, with assuming an identity, particularly as a victim. But there's also, just create rubbish bins in the body. Dis-ease is, the cause of illness, and it is always caused by stress, usually stress that we've created. There is environmental stress and there are toxins out there, but in fact, our choices around life are usually the most toxic influence we can have on ourselves.
And that choice is how we choose to interact with and experience life.
Yeah, our perspective.
Add to that, have the potential to add either to that dis-ease or to that open, loving nature that,
living in flow and harmony.
Life be in it.
Yes.
There you go.
Be in it.
That's showing our age again.
Yes.
It's scary.
Norm.
Okay.
Good old Norm.
See if anyone gets that reference.
Yes. There was something that you just said that had a little idea thing that just flooded into my head, and like a beautiful butterfly, it's fluttered out again. There's something around the radical self-responsibility and emotions, and the balance of feeling them, allowing them to move through you, and being constructive with them.
And also allowing them to be processed. Yeah. Because when we hang on to things and they gnaw away at us, or we have something that bothers us and it's just in the background constantly ticking away, and we never ever deal with that, then that's the sort of stuff that starts to come up later on. And if we're going to take responsibility for every aspect of our lives, how we interact with the people around us, the world around us, the environment around us, then we need to be able to let go of the baggage that's holding us back. Yeah. And it's that baggage that's holding us back that in a lot of cases is stopping us from stepping into the next phase, the next experience, the next part of ownership of who we are and where we're going.
Yeah, and it's almost like you create this sort of junction in your life that is almost insurmountable, that it colours everything that comes to pass afterwards. And I always remember, I don't think this was the intention of the joke, but there was a joke that I'm sure it would have been my dad that would have said it, because my mum is not a big swearer, but the joke is basically that, you fuck one goat and you're forever known as a goat fucker. Now, maybe in that instance, that's quite appropriate. But it is that thing of, if something happens, then part of radical self-responsibility is allowing the emotion to move through in some kind of constructive way, and then sitting in the observer role, and then hopping into the driver's seat to find some sort of affirmative action that moves you beyond that. Because to remain a goat fucker, what a way to live. this idea of how many people must lie on their deathbed just contemplating the choices they've made, or perhaps the things that they've hung on to when in that moment as they get ready to transition through death, in fact become really insignificant. And it's really it's so funny. I never got to have a really great conversation with your beautiful mum who's now deceased, but one of the things that always surprised me, because she was a very pragmatic woman, like she had no filter, which delighted me endlessly, but she could strike up a conversation with anyone like it was her superpower. And one of the things that always surprised me about her was that and she didn't wear the victim role in this, but I think it sort of puzzled her, was that within the family, there was a period of time where the siblings didn't speak to each other. And I always thought that was a really interesting thing, that you could hang on to such, I guess they must have been strong emotions of some description. They had a disagreement over something, and it was your mum's illness that suddenly reunited the family, didn't it?
Yeah, look, it was. And I remember I had many conversations with mum because I knew that she was unwell and the time was sort of coming, and we created the spaciousness.
Yes.
To take for me to be able to take the time and sit down with her and talk about it. And
you show up authentically. You didn't worry about it not being too much for her. You just was like, okay, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, and I asked questions about things that had probably I'd considered had been off limits.
Yeah.
And that, funnily enough, over the years, that was one of the things that it caused such a wedge within the family when it happened. And it was probably a few years later, and there was, one sibling would reach out, but not be heard. And then 12 months later, another sibling might reach out, and there was just never a point where they all crossed over until they sort of started to move. And it was probably when Dad passed away, which was before Mum, that a lot of that they sort of started to get back together. But the relationship, which had once been so close, never had the opportunity to get back to that point.
And that's why I wonder about that energy that it must take to maintain the rage, for want of a better term. I know that rage is really important for some things, like it was very important in the last 3 years to find some rage within, some of the decisions that were made that didn't seem to be grounded in reality. But within families, when those disagreements happen, I'm so curious as to how one maintains the rage. Like even that investment of energy feels like it's a lot, and you could almost pull back from that and just sit in the observer space, or just, disconnect in some way. I always find it a curious thing that it's a shame that we need to have those big life experiences where there is death within the family or illness to actually help people forget those things, and they take a breath, they put their big girl or big boy panties on, and they let bygones be bygones, because ultimately a lot of those hurts, they don't mean so much later on, do they?
No, they don't. And in that also, we're talking about radical self-responsibility. Yeah. So if there's a major disagreement in there or a major conflict, examine it yourself.
Yeah.
Have a look at it. What was your role in it?
Yeah.
I'm not saying for a second that you might be responsible for it, but I'm not saying for a second that you don't have a part within it.
Yes.
Because there's always two sides to a story.
Yes.
And
dialogue means too, right?
Yeah, it does. And so there's two sides, and quite often the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And which means that there's probably a few things that you're got a really good point and you're spot on about, but there's probably a few things that, you know what, you could do a shitload better.
Yes.
And examining those things and taking responsibility for those parts in there is the first part, so that it can be let go at a much faster rate.
Yes.
You know what? Yes, we've had a disagreement. You know what? This is how I felt about it. But you know what? You had some valid points as well.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm going to...
Things have to be reconciled all the time. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying happy families.
No, and some things are to a point where you are better off taking your radical self-responsibilities. You know what? Yeah, that was just the final thing.
Yeah.
Experience this week, obviously.
Yes.
Where I'm drawing my line in the sand, but now I'm drawing it in concrete.
Yeah.
And I'm not crossing that line, and I'm going to move down a different path.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best.
Now, that's right, because the space you're in and the space I'm in, it's not harmonious. So it doesn't work for us to come together. We're not bringing out the best in each other.
Yeah.
We're not even bringing out a neutrality in each other. We're sort of bringing out the worst of each other.
Yeah.
And it's a falsehood to think that we will always bring out the best in each other, or even, I mean, the best you can hope for with long-term marriage is some neutrality, right? I say that because we're just about to have our wedding anniversary. So, and we don't have a lot of divisiveness, but we can have neutrality. That's what brings the contrast into our relationship, doesn't it?
It does. And contrast is a great word, and it's a good thing, because if we don't have contrast in our lives, we don't know when we're loving it.
Yeah, that's right.
And we don't know when we're not necessarily enjoying it as much either.
That's right. And that is the ebb and flow. And I just think that if everything is energy, then particularly relationships need opportunity to expand, and they also need opportunity to contract, or if you think like a inhale, exhale. But this accordion is just such a beautiful way to think about how any of that energy moves, to allow for that to shift and ebb and flow and change and morph over time as we grow richer in our experience and our wisdom, our remembering. Yeah. There's something interesting that happened the other night, that I have the absolute honour of being in a small, very intimate women's circle, and we meet each week, and the space is just, it's extraordinary. It's like, it's how I roll all the time. I don't tend to hold my tongue. I just show up exactly as I am. But in this space, these women all do exactly the same thing. And we had this opportunity. We always go around and share. And within that share the other night, I was just remarking on how it was interesting to me that I have such a fascination with this radical self-responsibility. McGill and I have been talking about it, and we want to sort of pull it apart and see how, it shows up in different parts of our lives and in the community. And what I was basically saying was that I was curious about how the radical self-responsibility played into this birth course that I created, which is, I went and watched it again, which again feels a bit ridiculous, but you watch it to be the observer and see what it's like to actually, participate as you sort of watch these things. And I'm like, God, it's really, really good. But I have this absolute, just wall of terror to actually do anything that resembles any kind of promotion. And I was in this process of just talking it through, and there's something quite magical that happens when someone sits by you and they don't offer you anything other than just their company. They don't interject with what you're saying. They don't give feedback. You're not inviting some kind of discourse. It's just an opportunity to be heard and be witnessed, but not be fixed, which is a wonderful thing in our society, because we are plagued by this need to fix people or to be fixed ourselves, rather than allowing spaciousness for ourselves to do the fixing, if that makes sense. That was a bit of an inarticulate way, but you know what I mean. I trust you guys. You're a smart bunch. Anyway, the point was that no one saved me from this sort of abject disappointment in myself, that I could create something that I thought was going to be such a gift to people and not have any way to tell anyone about it. I was just so disappointed in myself, because really I do try and take opportunity wherever it presents itself. And I just kept saying, come on, universe, bring me in someone magical that's just going to love it and tell other people. And in that quiet moment, I thought about what radical self-responsibility means. And I went, oh, shit. I have to be the one to start talking about it, and in a way that is a love affair with the offering. It's not me. It's just some wisdom that happened to come by my hand. And in that self it's just an incredible gift. And would I hesitate in telling people about it if it was McGill's work of art? I would not at all, And so part of my radical self-responsibility, and I'm doing this to be witnessed and as a not even an accountability, but basically putting my money where my mouth is that I am showing up saying, I have an extraordinary birth course and it is all kinds of horrible for me to sit in this space. And so what I'm saying to you in a very vulnerable way is that you never quite get radical self-responsibility ticked off in every aspect of your life. There's always an opportunity for something else that's going to come through. And when you feel that resistance and you go, I don't want to do that bit. I don't want to do that bit. You've got to observe, why is that? And when the answer comes through to you that the terror you're feeling and it's abject hesitancy. It's not just hesitancy. It's just like comprehensive cellular hesitancy. When that comes through and you say, why is that there? Is it valuable? Is it valid? Is it true? All those sort of questions that I think Byron Katie does so beautifully in her work. When you come to the answer and it is some ill-fated belief in yourself that says you're not worthy and someone's going to slap you down and say, sit down and shut up, which they might still do. I'm okay with that. At least they will have experienced the course and actually have a valid opinion on it, But when it's just the voices in your head or the voices that throw you off course, whatever that might be, whatever your language is around that, then those opportunities, you must take them. You must take those opportunities as an invitation to show up radically responsible and say, I am here fully I'm present with you. I am, unashamedly showing up in the greatest degree that I can. And from that point, I am not apologetic whatsoever. And, whatever your response is yours to own. It's not actually a mark on me. So I think there's a richness in having those experiences and just noticing when you have an opportunity to show up in a really responsible way and just seeing how that feels. And even when you feel like you've got it mostly together, stretch even further.
And there's a couple of things I want to pick up in there. You use the analogy of someone else interacting with that course and not necessarily getting positive out of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a level of responsibility on them as well.
Yeah, let's say that because the course is so good.
Well, no. It is as well. It's also,
I agree.
There's a level of that as well. But you also basically said that this is has been a block for you and has been a block for a while. I mean, big fan of the birth course because it is amazing. And we've done 4 births together and I've been so privileged to be completely hands-on and involved and probably know more about birth than a lot of males do. And it is an amazing and fascinating subject. And it's one of the greatest, if not probably the greatest experience of my life. And I've been fortunate enough to be right in there, 4 times. And that is.
You were there at the start and the end.
I was there for the good times and the tough times. We're still going. But that's okay. And we're still there. The other thing that you said in there, so I'm talking about it being a block.
Yeah.
And this is where we can get stuck in the muck.
Yeah.
And this is where in your own life, you need to look at these things that you literally, when you hear them, they make you cringe.
Yes.
They're a part of your life. They're a part of what's happening. They make you cringe. They make you tighten up. They literally make you feel like you've got gumboots full of mud and you can't take another step forward.
I feel that in my body right now. Like it's
right now is where
so
you
much.
need to step up.
Yeah.
Exactly as you just had. You've got a heap out there. You've done amazing.
Yeah.
But this is where we need to go, you know what? This block is not going to hold me back. I am going to take responsibility over this.
I really would like to hide behind it right now. Is that okay?
No.
I did a little bit.
No.
Oh.
You're getting called
very
out.
Uncomfortable.
You're good.
Yeah.
You're being called out.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you find that you are stuck or something is holding you back, You need to get into it, look at it, and maybe change your interaction with it. So I would say own it.
Yeah. Well, and you also distance yourself from whatever that offering is as well. So it's understanding, like, even if the offering is an act of service, if that offering of service is of great value to someone else, then the block that stops you from offering that service is actually denying the positive ripple effect that it can have in the community. And so that very denial puts this kind of stop energy into the collective field, doesn't it?
And that's something we've discussed before about giving and receiving.
Yeah.
Some people want to give. We're not necessarily always open to receiving, but if you are open to receiving, it allows that person that's wanting to give what they have.
Oh.
And for you as the receiver to acknowledge it and take it.
That was our practice conversation, wasn't it?
It was.
Giving and receiving. We'll talk about that at some point too.
But what I would say, what I want to go back to, because I'm not letting you off the hook.
Oh, I feel like I've done my time, Your Honour.
Not yet. I've got a minute to go.
Okay. Give it to me.
Is looking at it and going, here is a block.
Yeah.
What am I doing
to
step past it? What is my responsibility? What is my radical self-responsibility at this point in time to allow myself to move forward? What do I need to do? And you need to make that decision, and you need to own that decision.
Yes.
And then you need to follow it through.
Are you going to make me do a public declaration of offering birth classes or something like that?
No, I'm not.
Oh, good.
But
because that involves our
but
children,
all these
family.
people are going to hold you to this to find out how you went.
Yeah.
Because this is right in front of us.
Yeah.
Beautiful opportunity for you to, again, as you said, Jodi, beautiful words. You allow yourself to stretch, Guess what? It's time to stretch.
Everyone else, do as I say, not as I do. That worked for my mother. Love you, Mum.
And I will hold her. I will hold her to doing it herself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did it with the half marathon. You know, I once got told I had a back injury. No, you never run again. And I thought, bugger you. I'm going to go do a half marathon. And I told everyone. And then I was like, oh, crap, now I've actually got to do it.
Not bad for someone that hates running.
I know. It has not improved my love of running at all.
But you took responsibility for it.
Yeah, I did. I had a lot of lollies, and I kind of did what was that guy's name? Cliff Young. Cliff Young. Blessings to Cliff Young. He made it okay to shuffle for a really long time, but he was awesome at it.
But you did.
And I did it for 21 Ks. Yeah, okay. No, I get, okay. All right. I'm not even going to call it challenge accepted. Flowing on from the power of words, I now move away from even using the word challenge because it immediately creates this resistance kind of language around it. So accountability accepted.
Excellent.
Opportunity accepted.
Well done, darling.
Thank you, sweetie.
And I'm sure as we go on,
yes,
maybe not in the podcast, I'm sure you'll find some more stretching for me to do too.
Oh, I plan on it. So not least on our little anniversary weekend, my love.
Well, look out.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us. Are you complete with this? Do you feel like you've said your piece?
Yeah, look, I do. And it's funny because it's sent little chung, 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 triggers off in my mind of other things that I probably need to examine and things I need to keep stretching. I think that's such a good analogy, a good word to use. You know, I've got this, not a problem, not a challenge, nothing like that, but I've got this point in my life where I need to stretch myself a little bit.
Yes.
And that stretching can go in any direction.
Yeah, and you've even stretched this week. And what I will say, and I do owe you an apology, I was too quick to kind of just go, come on, McGill, can't you see how amazing you are? And you know, that was a mean conversation, and it's a conversation for another time. But, you know, I didn't provide the spaciousness for you to go through that stretch, which you absolutely have earned. Yeah. And something that I really would love to have a conversation around that really fits into the radical self-responsibility. We're getting waves. Hi, sweetheart. Be there in a second. You know, you do podcasts with kids. That's how it goes. It was a sweet little wave at the door, though. One of the things that I really would love for us to have a conversation around, which I think comes under the umbrella term of radical self-responsibility, is I don't know if I want to call it this, but loss of identity or dropping identity. I think that is an opportunity to step right into this radical self-responsibility when you recognize the identity you have, this cloak of comfort or, visibility.
So instead of having that thing of it being a loss, talk about it as being an expansion of self.
Yeah.
We all have to stretch and expand if we're going to experience more of this life.
Yes.
And that will be a great thing to come back to, sweetheart.
It will.
It will.
It'll be a good conversation, darling.
It will be. So to all you amazing, beautiful people, we say to you, be ready to stretch. Yes.
Don't be ready. Do it now.
You might shy away from it, or in my case, you might need a bit of processing time for what's going on.
Yes.
So be supportive if you're the partner of that. Give the spaciousness and assist that stretch.
He's talking to me, of course. So this
is the only way I get it through. I love it.
Yeah. No, look, I think it's a really it's an opportunity, and it's not something that needs to be major. It can be just tiny little opportunities just to, say, did that feel genuine? What was my part in that? All those kind of questions that really come from a curious place.
Take that ownership.
Yeah.
And throw yourself into life.
Be well, beautiful people. We'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.